Welcome to this Oracle CloudWorld session on using Oracle Autonomous Database with Microsoft Power BI in the multi-cloud. Thank you for joining today. My name is Alex Keh. I'm a product manager in Oracle's database group. I work on a lot of database connectivity technologies, including how to get customers connected to Power BI. So without further ado, let's begin this session. So we'll begin with an introduction on a lot of the different terminology I'm going to use throughout the session. So talk about Power BI Desktop, Power BI Service, Oracle Autonomous Database, and also a little bit about Oracle on-premise databases as well. Then we'll talk about how to get connected. First through Power BI Desktop to Oracle Autonomous Database. Then we'll talk about the software as a service, Power BI service to the Oracle Autonomous Database. Once we go through the connectivity options, we'll then talk about future directions about how Oracle and Microsoft are working together to make it easier, to make it simpler to do the connection so that our mutual customers can benefit using our solutions in the cloud. So some introduction here on the different technologies and the terms, just to give everyone a level set of what we're talking about and what's involved. Power BI Desktop is the common, usually on-premise solution for data visualization with Microsoft, with a Microsoft solution. And it connects to an Oracle, to any database. And in this case, we're going to talk about Oracle Autonomous Database, which is certainly growing in the marketplace of being more commonly used with Power BI Desktop. Of course, Oracle on-premises database is already very commonly used with Power BI Desktop. So that's the data visualization software from Microsoft that's fairly popular. Power BI Service is the software as a service or SaaS version of that, same Power BI, and that's used in the Microsoft Cloud that can also connect to both Oracle Autonomous Database as well as on-premise Oracle databases. The Oracle Autonomous Database may be new to some of you, but it's actually quite a mature product at this point. It's a fully automated database from a manageability standpoint. So what it does is it automates things like patching, security, scaling, high availability, backup. So a lot of the managerial tasks that are usually taken care of, the Oracle Autonomous Database actually automates. But the nice thing exists for, say, Power BI users as well as developers is that the experience with developing applications for the Oracle Autonomous Database is virtually the same as with on-premises databases. So that whether you're dealing with on-premise or autonomous database, you as a Power BI developer or Power BI user won't see that much of a difference. And the other nice thing about autonomous database is that it is available in always free accounts, so that if you are a developer and you want to be able to develop an application with it, you don't have to pay. You can just use an always free account to get up to 2 autonomous databases to connect to. Now, the connectivity between Power BI and Autonomous Database occurs through the Oracle Data Provider for .NET. This is an ADO.NET driver that's available that performs the data access between these 2 layers. ODP.NET has actually 3 different types: unmanaged, managed, and core versions of ODP.NET. The one that Power BI uses today is the unmanaged version, so we'll talk about that in the connectivity section. But the one that Microsoft and Oracle are working to support in the future is the managed ODP.NET version, and I'll talk a little bit about that towards the end. All the ODP.NET versions are free to use, distribute, and host, so that on the Oracle side, if you are a developer, or if you just want to, even if you want to deploy for your app, you can use it all for free if you want, both the Autonomous Database as well as ODP.NET. So that provides a nice, easy onboarding experience for you so that you can try things out if you want to with Power BI. So some things I want to make clear as we talk about Oracle database support for Power BI is that if you are using Autonomous Database today and you came to this session to learn about how to use Autonomous Database with Power BI, you're in the right place. If you're using on-premise Oracle database, you also happen to be in the right place because the experience, as I indicated, is fairly similar. So the setup steps and functionality are pretty near identical from a connectivity standpoint, so that as you're trying to connect, you won't see that much of a difference between the two, whether two types of databases. When in terms of autonomous database and the different types of autonomous databases supported, they're all supported with Power BI. So if you're most commonly you would probably be dealing with an autonomous data warehouse connecting to Power BI, but you can also use an autonomous transaction processing database as well as a JSON database, a smaller shared autonomous database, or a dedicated autonomous database, or even a cloud at customer autonomous database. Exadata autonomous database is also supported. So any size, any type of autonomous database, it all works the same. So you don't have to worry about that either. For on-premise users, there's always the question of which versions are supported with Power BI, things like that. And the version supported will depend on the ODP.NET version you use. So if you're using an older Oracle database version, you'll probably use an older ODP.NET version to connect to that Oracle database. Now, for autonomous database, you don't have to worry about that because autonomous databases are always, always updated to the latest release update, and so you're kind of up to date with all your patches and such. But if you're using on-premise, you could be using an older database, and you're still supported. You may have to use an older ODP.NET version to connect, but it's still supported with Power BI. And this applies to both Power BI Service as well as Power BI Desktop. So let's talk more about the Power BI Desktop scenario in which you're using Oracle Autonomous Database. In terms of connectivity, the steps to do so are fairly straightforward. There's a few steps to do in order to get your ODP.NET Power BI connection connected to your autonomous database. The first thing you want to do is get your credentials. So you'll want to download from your autonomous database management page your credentials zip file, and that credentials zip file will have your tnestnames.ora, your SQLnet.ora, which provides the connectivity information to the autonomous database in the backend, as well as a wallet. And that wallet you'll take to provide your credentials to say, like, I am an authorized user. You put those TNS names and SQLnet.ora files into your TNS admin directory, and then you put your wallet into your target wallet directory. And they could be the same directory, but you can set those settings separately if you want to be separate ones. So now that you have the credentials, you need ODP.NET to connect. And the most common way to get unmanaged ODP.NET is to download the ODAC Xcopy package. ODAC stands for Oracle Data Access Connectivity. And I would recommend using the 19C version if you're connecting an autonomous database, as well as to most on-premise databases. 19C will work against pretty much all that, as far back as 11.2 databases if you need to support those. So you just go to that download page in the link here, oracle.com/database-technologies, net-downloads.html. You find the link for ODAC 19C Xcopy, click that. Decide if you want 32 or 64-bit, and then download that. And it's a free download, so you don't have to worry about that in terms of licensing and such. And then when you download it, you'll unzip it, and then you'll run an install script in Windows Administrator mode to then install both unmanaged ODP.NET as well as configure it so that it'll work with Power BI. And what it'll configure is that it'll configure for machine-wide configuration so that Power BI will be able to find your ODP.NET driver. And secondly, it will also set your TNS admin directory for where to find your SQLnet and TNS names.ora. I do recommend using the ODAC 1915 version or higher. That's the one that has these machine-wide configuration settings and TNS admin settings. And we have installation instructions as part of this ODAC file so that you can follow along and be able to install. And then lastly, you're pretty much done in terms of setting up the machine. Now you just need to tell Power BI Desktop, here's the server name, which is just your net service name. Here's your server name, which is your net service name. And then your username, your password, and then you should be connected. Just want to make you aware of some configuration options as you go along configuring your ODP.NET and Power BI Desktop to Autonomous Database. Power BI Desktop comes in two flavors, 32-bit version or 64-bit version. They both run on Windows, but what you should do is match the bitness of that Power BI Desktop with the bitness of ODP.NET. What that means is if you're using 32-bit Power BI, you should be using 32-bit ODP.NET. If you're using 64-bit Power BI, you should use 64-bit ODP.NET. This only applies to unmanaged ODP.NET. When we learn later about managed ODP.NET, you won't need to worry about this anymore. But for now, you do with because the current implementation of Power BI uses unmanaged ODP.NET. In terms of whether to use wallets or walletless connections, Autonomous Database supports both, and Power BI connectivity also works with both. By default, Autonomous Database uses wallet connections. So the installation instructions I'll share with you a little bit later covers that scenario, how to use that scenario. But you may also use walletless connections if you don't want to deploy a wallet, and then you'll be able to avoid any of these wallet instructions. But if you do use wallets, which is the default, you can enable wallet connections through one of two methods. You'll see here I have two methods outlined. One, you set the SQLnet directory setting and wallet location to the wallet's directory location, and this is very commonly used if you have if you only have one autonomous database you're connecting to. And this is available in ODAC 1915 and higher. Now, if you have more than one autonomous database that you want to connect to, what most developers tend to do is they customize each net service name to point to the wallet they want to use instead of putting that in the SQLnet.aura. So in the tnsnames.aura, you can create a my_wallet_ directory and set that to the wallet location for each autonomous database you want to connect to. And that way, in your tnsnames.aura file, you can have that single file point to many different wallets, and for each connection point, you just have the wallet directory set for each net service name, and then you are basically you're done, and you can have as many connectivity options to autonomous database as you want from that single machine. Very commonly, net service names are used for autonomous database, and for Power BI Desktop, most of the time you're going to use net service names. Power BI Desktop has a limit of 128 characters and for its data source strings. So there's some, if you want to use something like Easy Connect Plus, sometimes the strings can be a little longer than 128 characters, so that might be a little tough. But that should be fine if you're just sticking with the default net service name, which is the default that you'll get from the autonomous database configuration page. But if you're connecting to on-premise database, you do have the option of using net service names as well as the Easy Connect or Easy Connect Plus. So all of those are available to you if you are using on-premise. Easy Connect Plus, I've gotten it to work with autonomous database. You just have to choose kind of very short names for directory location, not directory, the service names, things like that, just to avoid going over the 128 character limit. If you do that, you can get a Easy Connect Plus to work if you want. And then once you're connected, the question of performance tuning always comes up, or not always, but sometimes comes up, depending on the size of the data you're retrieving. If you're retrieving hundreds of megabytes, you'll want to think about how to optimize that data retrieval to your Power BI Desktop. And the best way to think about that is how to reduce the number of database round trips. So every time ODP.NET grabs some data, asks for some data, does a query, if the query is very large, it will make a round trip every time to get a set amount of data. And that default set is 128 kilobytes. So if you want to get 1 megabyte of data, you're going to have to do 8 round trips to the database. Now, if you already know you're going to get, say, 1 megabyte of data or 4 megabytes of data, you can set a fetch size in ODP.NET through the Windows registry to that 4 megabyte size. And by setting it to the 4 megabyte size, you'll be able to retrieve all that data in fewer round trips. Now, how to do that? First, you want to do is you want to run your Windows registry editor with Windows administrative privileges. So you run regedit.exe. Then you go to the registry key hklm software, Oracle, ODP.NET, and then the version you're using. This is the 19C version that's used by all 19C ODP.NET, unmanaged ODP.NET versions for 122.19.1. So you find this key here, and then you add a string value called fetch size. And you set it to the number of bytes you want to fetch per round trip. So if you want to set it to 4 megabytes, you put in this nice number here, which is equal to 4 megabytes, and you'll be able to increase the fetch size from its default 128K. And I think that's about a factor of 32. So you should have, say, an order of magnitude 32 fewer round trips or 31 fewer round trips to the database. And once you do that, you just restart Power BI Desktop and run your queries. So that's the simple way to do it if with Power BI and ODP.NET performance tuning. So that was running it with the desktop. Let's learn a little bit about using the SaaS service, Power BI service, to Oracle Autonomous Database. So the architecture of the Power BI service with Oracle Autonomous Database is a bit different than Power BI Desktop. With Power BI Desktop, well, let me just explain kind of the flow and how things are going. If you're an end user of Power BI service, what you'll do is you'll have a browser, and that browser will make a query to the Power BI service. So it'll go to the Microsoft 365 cloud. It'll say, return me these results you request, and then it will talk to ODP.NET. ODP.NET is running on a machine called the Power BI Gateway, and this is also unmanaged ODP.NET, just like in Power BI Desktop. And then it will then do a data retrieval to the Oracle Cloud with the Oracle Autonomous Database. Oracle Autonomous Database returns the data to ODP.NET. ODP.NET sends the data to Power BI Service and thereby gives to the user. Now, in the Power BI Desktop realm, you would see these two silos, I guess you would call it, on the same machine. So you'd have Power BI Desktop and ODP.NET running on the same machine, but in the Power BI Service realm, the Power BI Service runs in the Microsoft Cloud, and the Power BI Gateway runs generally on an infrastructure as a service machine running ODP.NET to be as a go-between between Autonomous Database and Power BI. And that's the reason why is that ODP.NET is kind of its own separate layer. It's not really part of Power BI Service, which is SaaS, and it's it's a client component, so it's not part of the database server. So it kind of has to exist on a separate machine there. My purpose of explaining this is just to give you an idea of what the architecture looks like, so that you'll set up the service here, you'll set up a Power BI Gateway machine on an infrastructure machine, and then you'll set up your autonomous database as well. So that's how you get the connectivity all together. And in terms of setting this up, the starting point is the same. You download your autonomous database credentials, you download 19C Xcopy, and then you run the Xcopy install script, and you run this all on the Power BI Gateway machine. So that's the machine you run it on, because that's going to be doing the ODP.NET connectivity. So that's exactly the same as Power BI Desktop. What's different is that you have some additional steps to set up the gateway, of course. To that infrastructure machine, you have to download a Power BI Gateway, also called on-premises data gateway. So Microsoft kind of uses the two terms interchangeably. And then you install and configure the gateway. So what you do is you configure the gateway so that it can connect to your Power BI service, so the Power BI service knows that, oh, this is the gateway that's associated with this Power BI service account. And then ODP.NET will connect to the autonomous database through the normal configuration you've done in the previous step. And then you just connect Power BI to autonomous database with the normal server name, which is your autonomous database net service name, your username, your password, and then your gateway instance, because you have to tell it which gateway you want to use, because you can run more than one gateway as well. Some of the configuration options is a little bit different from what you would see in Power BI Desktop. The Power BI service is 64-bit only, so you only have to worry about 64-bit unmanaged ODP.NET. And wallet connections are exactly the same as what you would see with Power BI Desktop. So you can set your SQLNet directory, setting in a wallet location to the wallets wherever your wallets are located, or you can set the my underscore wallet underscore directory location to where uh, each individual TNS names.aura entry, net service name entry, has its wallet. Um, you can use net service name or Easy Connect Plus with ADB if you want. So nice thing about Power BI service is that it allows for longer uh, connection strings or service or names for the entries for the so that you can have more than 128 characters. So that will allow you to do Easy Connect Plus if you want. And of course, the on-premise Oracle database supports that service names, Easy Connect, and Easy Connect Plus. In terms of performance tuning, it's the same, except this time instead of working on the Power BI desktop machine, you're working on the Power BI gateway machine. One additional thing is the Power BI gateway runs as a Windows service, so you want to keep that in mind when you set your TNS underscore admin, is that you want to set that service wide, but the Xcopy installation takes care of that, so that it applies for all Windows services, not just the Windows user, which is Power BI Desktop runs under the user context. But that's just kind of a small caveat to be aware of. And the instructions are the same, and all you need is to restart the Power BI gateway to have those performance tuning options with the registry be in effect, as opposed to restarting Power BI Desktop. And Power BI Gateway is a service, so that you just restart the service. So I know I gave you a lot of information. Uh, I have written this all down in much more detail, and given you kind of a step-by-step tutorial. Uh, if you go to this link here, oracle.com/database/technologies/appdev/powerbi.html. And there you will find two links, one to that takes you step by step to set up Power BI Desktop with Oracle Autonomous Database, and the second one, the Power BI service, setting up the gateway, things like that, to Autonomous Database. Autonomous Database. Those instructions also cover on-premises as well, so that whether you're doing one or the other, you'll be covered either way. And you'll see that the differences between the two are not a whole lot. Autonomous Database does have specific security requirements because it is, it's on the cloud, so we want to make it add much more robust security. And then on-premise databases can have all sorts of security levels. So there's less that you may need to configure on the security level, but you'll be able to be walked step by step through many different of the scenarios that you could try, and you'll be able to use it. So let's talk a bit about the future directions that we're headed. And these future directions involved a close collaboration between Oracle and the Microsoft team. My team has been working with Microsoft for many months now, and we've been working on some joint projects to make this setup much more easy for customers, to the point where by the end you should just configure the specific just this connectivity of the database, the username, the password, and that should be basically all you need to do. And then, of course, you need to download the credentials too, but that should be all you need to do for setting up Power BI connectivity to Oracle on-premise databases as well as autonomous databases. But it's going to take a few steps. So and we're going to offer some solutions in the interim before we get to the kind of the ultimate solution, which is no installation of any specific bits at all from odp.net. So first thing we're going to do is make the odp.net a simpler install. And we're going to do that by, instead of making it an Xcopy install, which is probably more familiar for administrators, but not as familiar for the average Windows user, we're going to have a native Windows install with MSI, Microsoft Installer, with ODAC. So instead of doing a command line batch script that requires Windows Administrator mode, we are going to have a MSI GUI install and the GUI will take you through what options you can set your ODP.NET installation with, and we will be releasing that very soon. And then the next thing that Microsoft and Oracle are working on jointly is an Azure Active Directory OAuth 2.0 token-based authentication support. And this will make it easier for um, managing connectivity between Oracle and Microsoft. It will give the ability to do single sign-on, and it will give the ability single sign-on between Microsoft Power BI users and Oracle Autonomous Database users, and also easier to manage for those administrators that have to manage those two sets of users in the Microsoft Cloud realm and the Oracle Cloud realm. This OAuth token-based authentication is just a very common way that Azure Active Directory manages its users in the Microsoft Cloud, and its key benefit is that you have, as an end user, single sign-on. So you sign on to one, either the Microsoft side or the Oracle side, and then you'll be signed on to the other because you'll have a user mapped from one side to the other cloud side, so that you only need to sign in once. And this is something that Oracle has already added Azure Active Directory generic support, and right now Microsoft is working on enhancing that so that Power BI can use that Oracle database Azure Active Directory token support, because there is some customization that the Power BI team needs to do, and once that customization is done, you'll be able to do Azure Active Directory single sign-on with Power BI and Oracle Autonomous Database, as well as Oracle on-premise databases too. So that's the near term. That's closer coming. What's a little bit farther away is, but we're still working on it. It's not too much farther away, just that it does require a little bit more work, so it's less in the near term. We plan to eliminate the need to install ODP.NET at all. ODP.NET will be included with Power BI Desktop and Power BI Service. So ODP.NET will be in the Microsoft Cloud. It will be pre-configured to be able to use with Oracle Autonomous Databases as well as on-premise Oracle databases. And when you install Power BI Desktop, it will have ODP.NET as well. And this ODP.NET will be managed ODP.NET. So it'll be a smaller than unmanaged, and it's fully managed code. So it has the benefit of being 100% managed code there. One good thing about being packaged with the Power BI service is that it'll eliminate the Power BI gateway requirement. And what that means is that you won't have, if I go back a few slides, you won't have this thing here. It'll just go directly from the Power BI service to Autonomous Database. And the nice thing about that is that it should be a little bit faster. It should be less to manage because you don't have that extra infrastructure machine. So it has those benefits that for the administrators of Power BI, those who set up Power BI and database connectivity to take advantage of. And then lastly, if you as an administrator, you do manage, you want to manage the provider level of ODP.NET. Manage ODP.NET itself is much more easy to install and set up than unmanaged ODP.NET. So if you are choosing to manage the ODP.NET layer instead of letting Microsoft manage it, you can do that if you want, and you'll just have an easier time doing it. So that's another benefit of going to manage ODP.NET. And that will be part of moving from unmanaged ODP.NET. And when Microsoft Microsoft Power BI moves to using managed ODP.NET, they will then also include a provider as part of their service. So that covers some of the ways Microsoft and Oracle are working together to use Power BI. We've covered Power BI in terms of the desktop on-premise software, as well as Power BI, the cloud service, and how to connect to autonomous databases, as well as Oracle on-premise databases. If you want to learn more about ODP.NET and about Power BI connectivity, you can go to our .NET developer website for Oracle. It's otn.oracle.com/.net. You can visit our GitHub site for code samples if you are a ODP.NET developer. And then Twitter will announce whenever we have new things with Power BI support. We'll announce it on Twitter as well as putting it on our webpage. And then you can watch videos of using our .NET technology with Oracle databases on our YouTube page. So I want to thank you for listening in on today's session about using Power BI with Oracle Autonomous Database. If you have any questions and the previous links didn't answer all of them, feel free to reach out to me at alex.key@oracle.com. And thank you for listening in. I appreciate it.